Right now, Russians are lining up at empty gas stations because Ukrainian drones have struck deep inside Russia's oil infrastructure. The question is this the start of an economic crisis inside Russia itself? In the past week, Ukraine launched a wave of drone attacks on Russian oil depots and refineries. These strikes targeted facilities hundreds of kilometers inside Russia, far from the front line, hitting places once thought untouchable. As a result, Russia's domestic fuel supply has been severely disrupted. Gasoline and diesel shortages are spreading. Drivers in several regions report long queues, and some stations have already gone completely dry. Local governments have begun rationing fuel, limiting how much people can buy, but the timing couldn't be worse. Russia's harvest season depends on diesel for tractors and trucks. The Kremlin insists the situation is under control, but rising prices suggest otherwise. In fact, wholesale fuel prices in Russia have surged by more than 20% in just a matter of days. This is not just a military strike, it's economic warfare targeting Russia's most vital lifeline, energy. Why do these drone attacks matter so much? Because Russia is the world's largest oil exporter, but producing oil is useless if you can't refine it into fuel for cars, planes, and industry. Ukraine's drones are exploiting that weakness, knocking out refinery capacity. Analysts estimate that over 15% of Russia's refining ability is offline after the recent strikes. This means less supply for both the domestic market and for export. Already, Moscow has reduced gasoline exports to stabilize its own market. But this has ripple effects. Countries like Turkey, Brazil, and many African nations import Russian fuel. If shortages worsen, Russia may have to cut exports further, hitting its foreign earnings. For Putin, that's a serious problem because energy exports fund nearly half of Russia's federal budget. Meanwhile, inside Russia, inflation is rising. Food and transport costs are climbing as fuel prices spike. Ordinary Russians are beginning to feel the war not just in headlines, but in their wallets. Social media is full of videos showing farmers complaining, no diesel, no harvest. And if the harvest suffers, Russia's food supply and even its wheat exports are at risk. This isn't just a supply glitch, it's a systemic vulnerability being exploited. Ukraine has found a way to hit Russia where it hurts without crossing the border with troops. Each drone strike is cheap compared to the billions in damage it can cause. And with Western technology and intelligence support, Ukraine's drone campaign is only getting sharper. The longer this goes on, the more pressure builds on Russia's economy and its people. If you want clear, fast insights into the global shifts shaping our future, make sure to subscribe. Russia's fuel crisis is not just a national inconvenience, it's a global turning point. Because energy is the invisible thread that connects almost everything in the world economy. Think about it. When Russia cuts gasoline exports, it doesn't just hurt its own drivers, it creates shortages in foreign markets too. Countries in Eastern Europe, Central Asia, and even parts of Africa depend heavily on Russian refined fuel. If those supplies suddenly dry up, small nations could face soaring transport costs, blackouts, and food price inflation. And it's not just about gasoline or diesel. Fuel shortages hit every corner of an economy. Farmers need diesel for their fields. Truckers need it to move food across borders. Airlines need it to keep planes flying. The moment the chain breaks, ordinary people everywhere feel the consequences in the form of higher prices. Here's another angle. Russia has been using oil exports as a weapon against the West since the start of the Ukraine war. Cutting off gas to Europe was one of Putin's strongest cards, but now Ukraine has flipped the table. By attacking refineries, Kiev is showing that Russia's biggest strength, its energy system, can also be turned into its greatest weakness. This changes the psychology of the war. Until now, many Russians believed the conflict was distant, fought on Ukrainian soil, but empty fuel stations, rising prices, and food shortages bring the war right to their doorstep. Globally, investors are watching with fear. Oil markets are built on stability. The mere idea that a top oil power is struggling to keep its refineries safe is enough to push prices up worldwide. If this trend continues, we could see a chain reaction: higher energy bills, tighter global inflation, and new pressure on already fragile economies from Europe to Asia. And then comes the big strategic question. How far will Ukraine go with this campaign? If drone technology improves even more, Russia may face constant strikes deep inside its borders. Protecting every refinery and every pipeline in such a vast country is nearly impossible. That raises the stakes, not just for Moscow, but for everyone who depends on stable energy supplies. So, what are we really witnessing here? A fuel shortage, an economic setback, or the early signs of a much deeper crisis for Russia and for the world economy? Because if Russia's energy lifeline keeps taking hits, it won't just weaken Moscow's war machine. It could change global energy markets. And here's the real question for you. Do you think Ukraine's drone strikes will break Russia's energy system, or will Russia find a way to adapt and strike back harder?